We'll get started with a few questions. I'll only ask like 2, and then you guys can ask questions if you have extra time. First question, pretty basic. What has your transition to college been like, and what do you think helped you the most during that process?
What? Okay, good. I was summoned to go first, I guess. What is my transition to Pitzer been like, or to college? I think it was genuinely, for me, I think it was very different. I went to boarding school, so any boarding school people, yeah. So I had that layout that was like very interesting because I was kind of set up for that. I think one thing that was really helpful from Pitzer is just how focused and physically your campus and just a lot of the layouts and the programs are to kind of establishing an independent person. I think a lot of us for the first time are, moving away from home, maybe even moving across the country like I did, and that thing is like, with that comes independence, and with that comes kind of like almost relying on yourself. And I think the way Pitzer kind of lays that out for you is really, really helpful. I mean, even just like if you look like right outside, it's the first year complex. You're all together and you're surrounded by these amazing people, the people that are your neighbors, that are below you, your suite mates become your classmates, your best friends, your coworkers, people that you're with for the next 4 years, that you work with in admissions with. And I think it's so amazing to kind of have that layout for you because it definitely is immediately like you're not alone. And that was super, super helpful for me for kind of establishing my independence. Also, one of the greatest things for me was having a Pitzer Orientation Adventure program, which I think was a pivotal moment for all of us in coming into Pitzer. If you don't know what that is, basically, when you come to Pitzer in August, you'll come a week before everyone for Orientation Adventure. So it's programming, kind of different education programs and stuff like that. But the biggest part is actually going on a 3 to 4 day adventure with your OA group, which is your orientation group. And so you'll meet your orientation leaders out on the mounds one of the first few days, and there'll be about 15 to 20 of you guys per group. And that week you'll really spend the time getting to know each other, getting to bond, doing different activities. We have so many different programs that you can sign up for. There's beach camping, which actually I'm going to be an orientation leader for in the fall. So if you come to Pitzer, I'm going to be your orientation leader. But just for me, that was a really pivotal experience. I always like to tell my own story. So I came to Pitzer not knowing anyone, and I met my orientation group, and actually my 2 orientation leaders, Mike and Vince, they were like these big scary guys at the time, right? But they actually became like my best friends, and they're my suite mates now. I live with them, and we're all roommates. And my very best friend, who's also my roommate still, Ethan Yao, we also all met on that first day. And those are just like 2-year-long and soon-to-be lifelong friendships that I've had since the first day. And I think that was a great transition program to have. Yeah.
Thank you, David. Anyone else like to speak about orientation or anything? Transitioning to college?
Yeah, I think Dey summed it up pretty well. Orientation definitely is really special, but I think transitioning to college, wherever you end up, is really hard. And I think something that was like just really comforting coming to Pitzer is having all the first years live in the same building out here around the pool. It really creates really great community, and every single time you walk out of your door, it's going to be somebody that's in your grade, somebody that's also new to Pitzer, and somebody that's also looking to make friends. And I think it's just a really good setup for students to like have this scary move away from home. You have your suite mates that you can sort of lean on, that sort of roommate, suite mate dynamic, people to go to dinner with, your orientation group, first people to sit with, and all these things. And Pitzer really just makes sure that everybody is set up to sort of have community right off the bat. Yeah, and then I also just wanted to say a brief note on CSWA's message of if you want to talk to anyone in admissions too, we really don't want it to be like a CSWA against admissions people. Like, we all really support what they're saying too, so don't be shy to ask us questions about how that works. It is sort of a scary realization to come to a really leftist place like Pitzer and realize at the end of the day it still is an institution, so we're all happy to talk about that kind of stuff too.
All right, awesome. Great answers. And of course, we're all available to talk to you after the panel if you want to get to know our experiences individually. And make sure you guys speak up for the people in the back. Can you guys in the back hear well? Yeah? Okay, good. So just keep doing what you're doing, I guess. All right, my next question is what maybe we could just go down. Maybe we could start here, because you already spoke. What has been your favorite class that you've taken? Maybe prof or major class?
That's a great question. As I mentioned, I am an org studies and EA combined major, and I am having trouble picking between the two. So in my first semester of freshman year, I ended up taking this class called Visual Ecology, which was kind of this mesh of art and environmental like justice and all of these things, and we had these prompts where we had to use natural materials to create pieces of art. And coming into Pitzer, I had not really explored like that art side of myself and like my academics, but I love that class. And I also really loved a class that I took at CMC called Leading Social Innovation, where it was all about kind of like social innovation, as I just said, but where we worked with community partners, or not community partners, we worked with organizations, nonprofit organizations, and helped them with certain projects that they were doing, working towards like really cool causes. So yeah, those are the two classes that I really enjoyed.
My favorite class here at Pitzer was called Moon Call Black Women, Childbirth, and Pregnancy. I am really interested in maternal health and birth work, and so this class was super niche to my interests, and it really like helped spark my passion for it. The professor for it is named Adaija Sheppard. She's definitely my favorite professor here at Pitzer. She does a lot of work with this sort of birth work field and studies mostly Black granny midwives in the South and sort of their history. So this class was just super informative and really like just honed in on my specific passions. It was also a qualitative methods class, so it had a huge internship component where we got to work with women from LA and the South Bay area and work for their organization, and then sort of in exchange we got to interview them and do a huge like 25-page paper based on our interviews surrounding their experience being Black women and having a child here in the US. So that class was just super fascinating, and yeah.
I'll talk a little bit about my favorite professor. His name's Andre Wakefield. If you get a chance, like write that down. I've taken a couple classes from him. I'm not gonna lie to you, they're very hard. He will put you to work, but they're so worth it. The first class I ever took from him was a class called History of Science, which sounds really boring now that I'm saying it, but it was actually super interesting. It was about how like the philosophies and ideas of science have changed over time. So rather than being like, Galileo discovered this and whatever, he discovered whatever. But it was like about like sort of how like the idea of objectivity has changed over time and how that's influenced science and how science progresses and advances. And it was super interesting. It was very like reading heavy, but in a way that like you actually really wanted to do every single reading, because he would come to class and just like explain everything so beautifully, and you wanted to understand what he was talking about. He also has like the cutest little puppy that he brings to class every day. She's a corgi, her name's Heidi. She's the cutest little butt. But yeah, he's just like I feel like most professors here at Pitzer are very understanding that you're just there to learn. And I've taken all of my classes with him, pass fail, which he was like more than happy to let me do. And in fact, like actively encouraged that from a lot of his students who weren't history majors. So that was really great because I was able to take those classes and like really focus on the learning and not have to worry about like my grades, because like I said, he is quite hard. But yeah, he's incredible, so I would recommend taking class with him.
I would say my favorite class so far will probably be Leadership and Social Change. I took that class my second semester of college. It's basically a class that's structured in the Organizational Studies department, and with that class you really just learn structures of leadership, both like formal theories and other theories around leadership, and then you look into that in an intercultural local lens. Is one of our like general education requirements. You look at it locally within the surrounding area of Claremont and both within the Pitzer community. So you look at leadership structures and things within Pitzer, and then the final project in that class was to create a project of something that you want to change or be passionate about at Pitzer. So for me, it was so in this class also we had a lot of guest administration from Pitzer come in, we asked them questions, and part of that project was to talk to two other administration members of faculty or staff. For my project, I talked and worked with administration about building a bridge program for first-generation college students here at Pitzer. So that's something that I began to do, and all the work and notes that I did with that started to become a more house program within the Office of Student Affairs. So really, in that class, you get to look at leadership both tangibly, but on campus. And that class is supposed to be for students who are student leaders on campus. So it was really useful for me, like in my roles as an RA and working at financial aid and admissions at the time.
That was a really good answer, Adaija. I was going to say that too. I also took leadership and social change. It was one of the best classes I've ever taken, and definitely taking an inside look at Pitzer's structures and coming up with a project to, like, I don't know, fix them was definitely one of the most special parts of my Pitzer experience. But my favorite class, above all, has been color theory. And you might be thinking, what is color theory? Well, basically in this class we learned about like perception of color and how your eyes perceive different colors. It's kind of like when you look at an illusion and it's like two red boxes and they look like the same color, but then when you draw the line, like they're not the same color or something like that. Yeah, and so I took that class at the Robert Redford Conservancy. How many of you know what that is? Okay, surprised me there. Basically, the Robert Redford Conservancy is a property of like land that we have north of Harvey Mudd, so literally across Foothill. It's a bit of a trek. You have to like open up a gate with a code, and then you have to walk down like this dirt path to get to the house that it's in. It's really, really beautiful though. A lot of environmental analysis courses are taught there. There's a lot of, I think the herpetology class is taught there. That's like looking at lizards. Anyway, basically it was there and my professor was super awesome. We looked at a lot of art at the Claremont colleges. We researched Sky Space, which is a art installation by James Turrell in Pomona. And so it was just really awesome because I was like, whoa, my eyes are like lying to me, but not, you know? Anyway, that's one of my favorite classes.
I'm going to give a boring answer. Mine is actually an intro class, and I took it last semester, my sophomore fall. It was Intro to Creative Writing, which sounds so basic, I know, and I've taken a lot of more complex classes, but it was specifically this class for the professor. I had Adam Novi, who is the scripts professor. That dude is crazy in the best way possible. Like, he just goes on so many tangents, he gives you so much like advice, and like obviously the point of a creative writing class is kind of just like to work on your own writing poems and like short stories and stuff like that, and just like whatever you wrote, he was going to support you no matter what. Like, he thought you were a genius. Like, I could write the sky is blue, and then I'd go, this is the most creative thing anyone's ever written. And just like having that support system from a professor, especially as someone who's like not a great writer, not into creative writing, was just so goofy. He didn't like to wear shoes, so he didn't wear shoes during class. He always talked about his ex-wife, his divorce. He wasn't over it. Like, he was just like so everywhere, but it just made the class so much more fun. Like, he was the epitome of creativity. You know what I mean? It was like one of those guys where like, I would just love to live inside your mind, but also I'm actually terrified. But that's definitely one of my favorites.
Come to Pitzer College where you can be terrified of your professors. These are all really great answers. Probably for me, I do like my intro to astronomy class at Pomona was awesome. Okay, do you guys have any questions? If not, I have more questions.
Yeah, I have a question.
All right, right over there.
I was just gonna say, like, other than like the obvious stuff that you guys were like talking about before with like the labor stuff, is there anything like you guys like 100% like hate about this school and that you want to about?
Okay, question. What do you hate about the school? Go ahead. As the teaching staff, what do we hate most about Pitzer?
I'll just say my piece first. When I was in the leadership and social change class, I tried to fix this in my final project, but it just didn't happen. But they just sent way too many emails, y'all. Like, I had like
Is that a Pitzer thing or a college thing?
I don't know, it's definitely Pitzer specific. It's just too much. It's way too much. I literally was in a class. I tried to fix it. Can't fix it. That's my biggest beef.
This is a bit general, but it's like really true. I think here at Pitzer, especially with those core values of social responsibility, intercultural understanding, student engagement, It's a really great thing. Like, one thing that I would say that is unique and homogenous about Pitzer students is passion. But with that, there's a lot of just ideas and things just floating around. And I think the biggest issue, both with students and faculty and staff, is with these ideas, is like, when are we gonna, some of those ideas never come to life because there are always just a lot of ideas in fashion. And it's just like, we need to do better as a community with making those ideas more tangible and making them more consistent. Because also, there's a form of Pitzer, I'm a sophomore, so I haven't seen this form of Pitzer, but before the pandemic, that's often referenced, and how we need to get back to that, where this is the version of Pitzer that we have now. And I feel like a lot of things do not carry over because they're just ideas that exist within one time frame. Us as an institution, I think we need to do better with carrying these ideas throughout the years. Like, we need to build this new version of Pitzer post-pandemic and have it more consistent and bring these ideas to life. So, passionate people, love them, but sometimes the ideas need to come more to life in more tangible ways.
Period. Well done. Also, Kaylee, since you're the only one that doesn't work for admissions, do you have any? I'm curious if you like your perspective.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, guys, I don't work for admissions, so that's why I'm like not dressed the same, but I'm happy to be here. That's a really good question. I think we probably all have very different answers, but I really like what you just said. Something that I feel like I noticed when I first came to Pitzer, I really came to Pitzer because I was seeking out a community that was as passionate as I was about environmental justice and like sustainability. And I think I was surprised when I got here at I was surprised with how few people matched my passion, I guess. Not that I'm like the warrior for the environment, but I was expecting a little bit more passion for the environment, and as time went on, I definitely found those people, and I found those communities, and I found those classes, and I found those professors, but it did take me a little while, so I think, not that I hate this, but sometimes, because we have these core values, we draw a lot of people that on the surface may say that they're passionate about this, but exactly what you just said, like, people aren't really putting that into practice, and I think I really noticed that specifically in the environmental sense. So those people are there, but it took me a while to find them, and I think that was what I found frustrating. But it's worked out, so yeah.
I will say my least favorite thing about Pitzer, it's also one of my favorite things about Pitzer, but it's that everything is like student driven. And that sounds really great and that sounds awesome, but also when it's up to students to fight for more diverse spaces, when it's up to students to like have to advocate for themselves all the time, like it means that the whole like legislative process within Pitzer is really slow moving. And it also puts a lot of responsibility on students to do things that like a lot of students don't have the capacity to do. Especially being like a person of color on this campus, I feel like with affinity groups and with like safe spaces and stuff, everything is student driven. With like the first gen group, like everything is student driven, which puts a lot of responsibility on those students who are already first gen, people of color who like have so much to deal with going to a liberal arts, private, predominantly white institution already, that like having that added responsibility can be a lot. And while it's great to be like, yeah, like students get to decide all this stuff for themselves, the amount of time it takes to actually put all these things into practice, sometimes it's just more effort than it feels like it's worth. And really like, I owe it to a lot of like my like very driven peers to like, I don't know, when we went online for the pandemic, a lot of students advocated for a pass, like no credit, like grading system rather than like the traditional like ABC whatever, because like halfway through the semester we were sent on campus and students were returning to a lot of like really precarious home situations and like couldn't deal with schoolwork at the time. And it's great that like students were able to pass no credit grading system, but it was all on the backs of like 4 first gen students that stepped up and did the work. And it's their responsibility to fight for something as basic as the recognition that like not all students come from like safe, comfortable like living spaces, and not all of us are able to maintain grades when we're like thrown off campus in the middle of the semester. So it's like a silver lining that like we have students that are willing to put in the work, but I just wish that we didn't have to.
Yeah, those are all great answers. Just want to say I've been hearing some like background chatter. You guys are not required to be here, so if you're going to disrupt the space for our panelists and other students, feel free to leave. If you have a question, I'll take your next question. Yeah, right there.
Yeah, first of all, I just want to say thank you guys. Like, your answers are really like insightful. My question's about how distribution of time, like how much time do you feel like you're spending towards like your academics and your classes versus like club and like, or maybe sports and all of that?
All right, distribution of time.
Yeah, I really like talking about this question because I feel like your time is very much yours here, and you can really make your schedule whatever works best for you. I personally have never had a class on Fridays here, which is really, really nice. And I personally really like to front load my weeks and work really hard Monday through Thursday, but then not do any work over the weekends. So that's sort of kind of what my schedule that works best for me looks like, and that sort of means having class 10 to 5 Monday through Thursday, and then nothing the rest of the time, if that makes sense. I try to go to the beach every weekend, so that's very possible, and something that really, really helps me stay motivated for school is being out in nature and in the sunshine. And so when it's so accessible to get to go do the things that you want to do and that bring you joy on the weekends, it's a lot easier to be a hard worker during the week, I think. But yeah, that being said, a normal sort of course load here is 4 classes. You can take less or more if you want. And then there's a ton of jobs on campus, whether you're wanting to do more of an office or promoting job like Pitzer, or be a tour guide or a fellow like we are, or if you want to be a barista, or you want to learn how to cook, or you want to work in the garden. There's a million different options for paid or volunteering work around here. So you just have endless options, and you can really work as much or little as you find fits your sort of style.
Yeah, great answer. I feel like, yeah, it really depends on the person. Everyone's schedule is completely different. I have some people that have 2 classes in a day and then are done by 2 p.m. or whatever. And then there's people like me who have 2 jobs on campus and are on 2 executive committees for 2 different clubs and working an internship with faculty. So it really depends on how involved you want to be, what your pension journey is how you decide it. You can pretty much get involved pretty early on. I worked for Res Life starting my first year, and I became RA my second semester of my first year. So, and that was by choice. You become as involved as you want to. It's completely up to you. I see a trend more with I think people of color on campus having less free time for the need of advocacy for themselves, or just wanting to assert and make their communities feel more inclusive and belonging on campus. So that is a trend I do see. A lot of student workers are people of color as well. So it just depends on the student and what you're looking at.
Yeah, and something I want to add, I wanted to share this earlier in the transition to college. I'm a student that uses academic accommodations, and I was kind of nervous coming into college about how to balance my time, because that is something that I kind of needed assistance with in high school. And so I kind of looked around, and we have a really cool resource that is our academic coach. Her name is Connie Helen. She's awesome, and she is available to all of you. So when you're thinking about classes and figuring stuff out, what I did is I just emailed her and ended up making an appointment with her, and I decided for my first semester in college to take 3 academic classes and then do dance, which is something I love to do. So I ended up kind of making that transition a little bit easier for myself because I was nervous about how to manage my own time. But I will say, because it really is up to you, as you all have said, there are ways to kind of really tailor your schedule and your activities to fit yourself and to fit what you need. And it might take some time to figure out what those needs are, but there are so many things in place to help you reach that realization. So, yeah.
Yeah, we'll also say that like class schedules can really vary depending on what you choose. I used to be like the kind of person who would have class like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, because that's generally when like STEM classes are. And now that I'm in like upper division classes, I can skate around that, which is nice. But like this semester, I randomly ended up with 2 nighttime seminar classes. So 2 days a week, I have class from 7 to 10 at night, which means that I'm free up until 7 p.m., which is great, but then you have to go to a 3-hour seminar. I don't recommend it. So like, it really depends on like what classes you choose, and you can be really intentional about it, and you can decide like, hey, like if you're not a STEM major, you can be like, hey, I never want to take a class on Friday, and you probably won't ever have to. Last semester, I only had class on Tuesday and Thursday, which was great, but that meant that my Tuesdays and Thursdays were hell. So it really depends, and you can like try out a bunch of different stuff and see what works. People all work differently, so you can really find like a good balance with that in terms of classes. And then most of the clubs on campus are very like fluid in terms of how much time you can devote to them. We all have different schedules, and they're very like all of the clubs are student run, so they're cognizant of that fact. And so you can really like choose how much you want to be involved in particular clubs. Some of them obviously are going to require more work than others, but like I don't know, like if you're on like the 5C sailing club, that means like 1 day out of every month that you go sailing, you know? Or if you're in like an affinity group, that's usually like one meeting a week. So you can really choose based off of like when you go to like a bunch of clubs, see what those sort of responsibilities will be, and then decide if you want to be a part of them or how much you want to be a part of them.
Someone ask us a fun question.
Not that wasn't a fun question.
No, that was a great question, but ask us a funner question.
Great point. I will also say, we have an ad drop period, so if you're in a course and the first few weeks you really hate the course, you could just switch to another course. Fun question.
Yeah.
No pressure.
Thanks. I'm wondering if you speak more to like the student culture. Like, is it more like is it like a party culture, or like a more academically oriented, or like?
We party every single night. Day and night. Have you guys ever heard of like a danger?
Yeah.
Every day.
That's
I would say, well, that is obviously not true. Actually, no, only Mahima's partying by herself every day.
I'm actually drunk right now. Don't talk about it.
No, but I would say one of the things about the weekend life and party culture is it really is up to you and like how comfortable you are with it. First and foremost, I'm like going to be transparent with you. We're not the biggest party school out there for sure. So yeah, sorry. But also, like we do have things going on, and if you want to find something, you will find something. And I think one thing that's really cool about Pitzer students is that like you can really plan your own weekends as much as you want to. I, for example, I like to go out, so I'm out Thursday, Friday, Saturday if I want to be, and like I'm gonna find something to happen. There are people who would like to stay in their dorms and do a little hanging out with their friends, and so it's like really just like so it's really just like what you want to do. I don't know.
Okay.
I want to talk about myself.
Yeah, I think Dey, I'm just going to expand on Dey's answer a little bit. And kind of goes along with like our student-driven piece. There can be a lot of events on campus, and there can be weekends where there's like literally 3 events in one night on like across the 5 colleges, but like maybe 2 at Pitzer or whatever. And that's because like any student can really plan like any party that they want. We have like events board, and I've seen like, you know, like the clock tower parties. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. 5C Halloween, we definitely have like some standout parties. The culture was definitely different before the pandemic, but I don't want to remark too much on that. It's definitely like, it's getting better. I can see it's gaining heat. So definitely depending on like what the incoming class is like.
It's up to you guys.
It's up to you guys.
Find the parties.
You determine our party culture. Well, not mine, because I'm out of here.
it's also like, this is a consortium, so yay, you got in here, you got the other forces. So Claremont, McKenna, Pomona, probably those two, and even others are always planning something. So like, even though Pitzer's dead, that's kind of cool. You can go off and go to another campus and go party with them. And if you're living in one of the upperclassmen halls over here in Meade, it's like a party every damn day.
I go to sleep to music, like literally music.
I will say, mothers know how to party.
Yeah.
They're weird, but they're really fun.
I gotta release the snack for sometimes.
They have a sailboat at their door.
Yeah.
Great party.
But aside from partying, you can also like Sydney was saying, like there's plenty of opportunities to go off campus and like to go to the beach every weekend or go to the desert. Like we're really close to a lot of like really awesome nature-y type things. We're also fairly close to LA. Like it's about, if you take the Metro Link, it's like a 15-minute walk to the station, like 45 minutes to Union Station in LA, and then you can pretty much get anywhere. One of the pitfalls of LA is that everything is so spread out, so it will take you about like an hour to get anywhere. But like if you're willing to do that, like you can go spend a whole day in LA and you'll find people that want to go out with you. Also, we have like a club on campus called Pitzer Outdoor Adventures, and they will like fund outdoors trips that students take. So for example, if someone has a car, like an upperclassman has a car, and they're going to Joshua Tree for the weekend, they can offer up the extra seats in their car in exchange for POA, covering the cost of like gas and snacks and stuff for the trip. So if you're a part of like that listserv or anything, like if you sign up for POA, like you'll get emails and you can sign up to join someone's trip to like anywhere they're going. And people here there are like very, very outdoorsy people here, so there's always POA trips going on. My freshman year I went on a couple and like I got to meet people that way, and also just like explore the area around here. So like the desert, beach, mountains, like we kind of are close to everything, which is really nice.
Okay, we probably have time for about one more question, but of course, anyone in the booth should go up and start a conversation with them if you have more questions, and we'd be happy to answer.
This one's kind of a quick one. Is there any way to get around the waiting 2 years to have a car things? Like,
Find loopholes.
I think you can definitely like talk, with admin, and I know that there are exceptions. I think I have like a couple friends.
I can actually
accommodations if you need a vehicle.
Yeah, so I actually am a sophomore who has a car. If you have accommodations, you just have to make it clear to our transportation director. His name is Bryce. But if you also live off campus sophomore year, they're more accommodating for a car. But yes, there are, like, if you demonstrate a need for a car before junior year, you could definitely get one. The only reason we don't allow, like, freshmen and sophomores to have cars, of course, we want you guys to be on campus in the community, but parking space is limited. I would say that's the reason. But actually, we do have more parking spaces coming. Claremont McKenna is building their new campus, and they're giving us some parking spaces since we gave them some land. So that should hopefully clear up that parking problem. Okay, I guess we have another quick question.
I was wondering, as like a predominantly progressive campus, if there's like a natural social divide based on like political ideology.
Social divide based on political ideology.
Well, I will say, like, we are a very left-leaning campus, so more conservative views are definitely in the minority. And I will say, like, if any of you hold conservative views and want to be very vocal about them, like, that's great, and people will welcome it, but, like, people also will want to talk to you about it. Like, and talk is kind of a nicer word. But people will disagree with you, and people will be very open about their disagreements with you. And that isn't to say that like conversations like that and like disagreements aren't welcome, but like just I guess if you do have more conservative views, like know what you're signing up for. But I will say like that's mostly like a Pitzer thing. Across the consortium, there are a lot more conservative voices, particularly at CMC. So there's you know, like I know like politics can be really like emotional for a lot of people, so like making sure you're able to have like actual like productive conversations about that in the classroom is something that a lot of professors really value, and they'll put an emphasis on. So it's mainly like the stuff I was talking about before is mainly like more in a social sense, like if you're vocal about that stuff, like that's great, but we want people to disagree with you.
Okay, that was a quick question, so we could do another quick question in the back.
What is like a favorite or most memorable like memory from your time at Pitzer?
Oh, I got this.
Take
Okay.
it.
Once upon a time, I was hungry after class, and I wanted to go forage for some little snacks in the student garden, okay? Just into the story. They have guavas there when they're in season. This was last spring, so the fig tree was really, really popping off. And I remember, like, the faculty in residence was, like, eating some one day with her daughter. And she's like, oh, you want a fig? And I was like, yeah. Anyway, that's why I was scoping out the fig tree. And it had, like, a lot of leaves. It's looking a little sad now. But I was looking under there. I was just trying to see if there was anything I could snack on. And I saw, like, a folded up t-shirt. It was, like, tie-dye. And I was like, oh my goodness, like, what is this? And I was like, hella curious. So I took it out, and there was like a note inside made on handmade paper. And it said something like, I love you, Jason, like, your smile, da 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 da. And I was like, whoa. I was like, I'm not sure if I'm the one this is for. But I looked at the shirt, and there was this beautiful, like, Pitzer, like, design on it that had been, like, hand printed. And I recognized the design from my suite mate's room. She had like a print of it on her wall. So I texted her. Basically, I found out that a student at Pitzer was making these shirts and kind of planting them different places on campus for people to find. And so I got to keep that shirt. I still have it. And I found it in the fig tree. It was so lit.
I was gonna say, so mine was freshman year. I lived up there. And it was the last weekend of school, so it was like May, and everyone was really excited to go to summer, and like it was really fun. And so that pool does this funny little thing where at sundown, like locks. So basically, if you try to go through the fence, the alarms go off. And so Pitzer students really love to test the alarms at night and see how they can get into the pool without setting off the alarm before campsite comes. I wouldn't recommend this, but do it. And so it was the last week, and there were like 100 students coming out from like Saturday night, and everyone's like, fuck it, let's just go in the pool. And we all just like storm over the fence, like no care about the alarm at all. And there's just like 100 students jumping into the pool like on our last night of like school of the weekend, like before everyone's going home for summer break. And I was just like, wow, like, it made me, at the end of my first year, made me excited to come back, and I hadn't even left yet. And I just remember like jumping over that fence, jumping straight into the pool with like all my best friends. And it was just like one of the best moments ever. I was like literally, I can't wait to come back here in 3 months. And I just like forever have that memory burned into my head, but it was great, yeah.
I also have a story that maybe you guys shouldn't really listen to. But last semester, I was having a terrible time. Really just like not thriving. I will say, if you plan on dating someone with the 5 C's, don't break up with them before you graduate. This is a tiny ass school. And I was having just like a terrible day, and my friend texted me at like 11 p.m. I'm like, hey, what are you doing? Like, I kind of want to be around someone. And she's like, hold on, meet me at the service road in like 10 minutes. And I was like, okay. The service road was like this road right here. So I come out of my room, and I'm down at the service road, and I'm like, okay, I don't know like what she's planning, whatever. And then I see a little campsite cart kind of come up the road. And who's driving it? My friend, who stole it. Someone had left the, ooh, there's